Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Mariner Spirit. I'm Greg, your host, and I would like to start off a little differently tonight in the respect that I have a few things to say pertaining to the people that put me on the air here. And, you know, I mentioned it maybe before, but this will be the last time I do. But I just want to make a point of you guys knowing that this is part of my family, and they took me under their wing, and it's Katie and Katie Stafford, and Brandon is my producer, and they've done just a great job for me, and I'm really extremely grateful, and I love them, and I thank them. And with that being said, I'd like to go ahead and mention a few things. And the first thing is the people that I support. And I believe we're going to go ahead and put it up. And that is PKC Paranormal Kicks Cancer, Chris Gaskowski and Alex Wilkinson. And they're from Florida. And they do benefits across the country for cancer research. Secondly, Mike Couch, this is his last year. And Mike is a part of the Lost Limbs Foundation. He founded it, he created it, and if you get an opportunity, just drop him a line. He's at the Rhodes Hotel in Atlanta, Indiana, in case you need to find him. Thirdly is Tim Miley from Pooches. And I'm going to wait. Anyway, Tim Miley is a great guy, and he has a charity, and it's concerning pooches and rescues and things like that. And I apologize for not remembering the name tonight. I have certain things that I've been thinking about, and the pooches were autographs. Excuse if I finally got it. Thank you very much, you guys. Thanks for the answer. And that sort of got me stymied. And fourthly is the Jessica Petrie Foundation, and that's a resource for expecting mothers and families of pregnant girls' mental illness. And that's brand new, and that's Howard Petrie. So, and then I'm going to go ahead and mention one more thing, and that's authors, people that we that I like to recommend to you people, either on Amazon or through the authors themselves. And you got Heather Lee Langdon, who's on tonight, Dr. Heather Lee Langdon. You've got Ron Iacovetti, you got Lynn Monet, you've got Dr. Rebecca Foster, you got Bruce Holliday, Rex Nielsen, who's on our network too, Todd Bates, and that's about it. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is I'd like to go ahead and welcome in my guest tonight, Dr. Heather Lee Langdon. And she's a great lady, and it's been a pleasure to get her back on the show again. And it's been amazing. Welcome tonight, Heather.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's I got the little kid jitters for some reason tonight. I'm blowing words.
It'll be a fun conversation as always.
I know, but it just every once in a while I get that, and I'll get so far, and then a word will drop, and then I can't find it I'm like a squirrel trying to find a nut, But anyway,
it sounds like my daily routine.
It's one of those things that happens. Well, you've been on the show before. When I first saw you, it was back in the day when you guys first had, I think it was Paranormal 101, and before Paranormal Education 101. And it was a great show, and a lot of people should have been paying more attention to it because you guys always had the best in comments. You had the best in ideas and things that go on in the daily field of paranormal investigations. I know that some of the things that you've been involved with lately, and I know you're even a teacher, so you have a couple classes that you teach at. You said it's at TMCC, which is Truckee
Meadows Community College.
And you teach different courses. You have one in protection, is it?
I do have a paranormal protection course. It was available through iMystic University, but she since then shut down that online school, and we're in the process of rebranding as the Witches Paranormal Society. And all of my courses that I had with iMystic will be available through Witches Paranormal.
Okay, now I could go down the line, and I could go all the way from the things that you have accomplished, which are quite fantastic. And you have a couple here that really caught my eye that I didn't see before. And that dealt with the paranormal science, and you're certified as a paranormal investigations, and you're also certified for an EVP tech.
Yep.
Can you give us a little idea of how you did that and where you had to go and everything else? Because there may be people in here that would like to pursue that.
Right. And it's one of those things, I always tell people the more you can educate yourself in this field, the better. And the Institute of Metaphysical and Humanistic Studies, as well as Thomas Francis University, offer online degree programs in paranormal. And Dr. Kelly is amazing. And part of the paranormal science track that I took, because we studied everything from thermodynamics to the Heisenberg principle and wormhole theories and how it relates to the paranormal, he also offers certification classes where we take a deep dive into EVP technology, how EVPs may, theories behind why they develop, how to analyze them, how to identify visually an EVP in your audio. And we used multiple programs. So it wasn't just one program that we studied. And it was, hours upon hours of listening to EVPs and then determining, is there something there, isn't there? And then the certified paranormal investigator was, it took into how to preserve evidence, how to collect it. It took almost like a CSI approach to being an investigator, as well as integrating the scientific method into paranormal research.
That is, just really amazing that, when you really stop to think about it, it's so intense.
Yep.
Yet, you're being so thorough. It probably has to be that way, because of now, when you do talk about the EVPs,
Mhm.
and you talked about that part, and I'm sitting there going, wow, does that mean that you're going to go over the evidence like 10 times compared to two?
Sometimes I used a little bit of my previous experience and what Dr. Kelly taught us. So I'll depending on the type of evidence, if it's video, I'll analyze it several different times. Of course, I'll watch it once with the audio on and eyes open. Then I'll sit and listen to it with, my eyes closed. So the video is all gone. And even with the digital voice recorder, I'll sit and listen to it once with my eyes closed just so I can like tune out everything around me. And, so I probably go through each EVP myself anywhere from 3 to 4 times, the digital recordings, just to make sure I didn't miss anything. And then, of course, I have my team do the same thing.
So how big of a team do you have?
It's my husband and my son. We're small, but we like it that way. I joke with everybody. I tell them that I've trained them right, and I know who I'm going into the dark with.
Well, that's fantastic because,
Mhm.
you don't want a team too big
Right.
because of contamination and everything.
Mhm.
So, when you do it that way, you're miles ahead, I think.
Mhm.
Plus, their traits.
Right. Yep. Yeah,
You
and we
know,
all work well together. I mean, I'm the true believer. My husband's the skeptic, and he goes in and tries to like ground me again and make sure I'm thinking, realistically. And then my son comes up with these out of the world theories, so it works perfect.
give us an example of one of the theories your son came up with.
One one thing is he said he Bigfoot is a ghost of a caveman type of thing. So Bigfoot's really not an entity; it could be a ghost that we're seeing. So he was throwing different things about that, and he also we've talked about why don't we hear dinosaur or why don't we see dinosaur ghosts anymore? And then different when we talk about when we were investigating out in I'm trying to remember at Goldfield, he would talk about the different compositions of the ground and just so many different things that he would talk about. And even when you go back and talk to him about it, he's like, I don't remember that, but he just shoots his mouth while we're doing stuff. And if we don't have a recorder on him, we miss stuff.
So between all three of you on the team,
Mm-hmm.
do you carry a lot of equipment or do you carry a minimum?
No, I have for our entire team, we have probably a carry-on size case. And it has a camera, an IR light, dowsing rods, pendulums, pendulum boards, fidget spinners, and a video camera. And then, of course, digital voice recorders.
So they all have their favorite tools they like to work with?
We all pretty much, I prefer video. My son likes to do video and audio as well. And then my husband usually is the one that has the camera.
So that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So who plays with the dowsing rods?
That would be me.
Have you been doing dowsing rods for a long time?
For several years. I usually use pendulums first. And then someone gave me a pair of dowsing rods and I tried them. I loved them. And then I started ordering my own and they're just amazing. It takes a lot of practice to make sure you're holding them still, but they're a lot of fun to work with, especially when it's like, trying to remember when it was, but we were doing a photo shoot and we stopped by a local cemetery here that's from, it's the 1800s. It's one of the first cemeteries in the area. And it was just a quick photo shoot and I had the dowsing rods in my hands and I just wasn't planning on investigating. And I'd said, if you're here with us, cross the rods. And all of a sudden the rods started crossing and I got this biggest grin on my face. And it was some of the best photos that they've ever captured of me for a photo shoot.
Well, that's great. That's absolutely awesome. You talk about, you talk a lot in your resume pertaining to your contributions for the touch of magic.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Why don't you go ahead and explain some of that? Because I find that really interesting too.
Yep. When COVID first started, my friend Marissa, she was trying to think of a way similar to how we did Ghost Education 101. She wanted to come up with a way where she could still have the local, because she runs Sin City Witches, to have the local witches still get together virtually. So we would do panel discussions, and then each of us had our own specialty, and we would produce videos. So a lot of mine were paranormal based, or I do a lot of herb and crystal videos, and they're just short, 3 to 7 minute videos that, like I did at Sage, how to burn sage properly, or how to create a sage bundle. And she put them all up on Facebook and YouTube. We've kind of gotten distracted because we've been working on other projects, but that was one of my favorite things to do.
Wow. So you use all your own crystals on those? Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What are your 3 favorite crystals?
I like tourmaline, of course. It's called a citrus selenite, so it's orange. And but it has the same properties as selenite, and howlite is my favorite.
What's howlite?
It's a big, I usually have it with me, but of course it's upstairs. I forgot to bring it down, but it's like a white stone with gray marble streaks through it. But I love it because it's perfect for meditating. My stone is probably about that big, and it's always cool. So if you have a headache, you can lay down and put it on your forehead like you would a cool rag. Or if you're meditating, I put it on my forehead and it just kind of grounds me. And it's one of the, I carry it everywhere I go. And of course I left it upstairs.
And so it actually sort of deflects the heat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's always, I've kept it in my bra. Too much information for everybody, but I've kept it in my bra. And when I've pulled it out, it's still cold.
Wow.
It's great for hot summer days here in Florida.
Now, you also mentioned about ghost town talks.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And your adventures, and you also mentioned, ethical paranormal researchers and client paracare.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Client paracare, what is that?
Basically, what I wanted to start doing is I've put together several presentations that talk about how to take care of clients, because we have so many people in the field, and I'm all for, if you want to be, I guess you would say, I call them paranormal tourists or thrill seekers, but those type of people don't need to be going into homes. And if there's so many people that have come to me for help and they've explained to me what the previous team did, that I thought it was time that I put together some type of presentation, or even classes in the future I hope to do, that teach these teams what exactly needs to be done when you're helping a client. Because if we don't, and we talked about this yesterday on another show that I host, if we don't get organized and start doing things the same, I guess you would say, or similar, we're not going to be able to share evidence with each other and move this field forward. And B, if the field keeps going the way it's going, the government's going to get involved and be like, hey, you guys need to be certified because you're causing more harm with people than you're doing good by going into their homes, not knowing what you're doing.
Do you anticipate that really happening?
I do. There's so many people out there that are getting hurt right now because paranormal investigators come in thinking they know what they're doing, and that, we all have to learn somehow, but find a mentor and find out exactly what you need to do. But these teams are going in, they're either breaking stuff in the home, they're telling clients they have a demon before they even investigate. Something happens in the home and they run out. Others are, I've seen people fake evidence from homes, that the client was like, oh, well, the team gave this to me, this is what's in my home. And the minute I, analyze it, it was photos. The minute I analyze it, you could see that the pixels are different, and it was an overlay that they put on the photos saying that the girl had a spirit in her home, just so they could say they had evidence in a home. They're exposing clients on the internet, but not giving clients evidence themselves. And they're just not taking care of people. And if you're not going to take care of the clients, in my opinion, continue doing what you do by going to Waverly or, any of those other places. But, leave the people that need help, because their pain is real. Leave that to the people who know what they're doing and are willing to take the time to help the client get through it. Because it's so much more than just going in with your digital voice recorders and asking questions.
I know that over the years now, private investigations
Mm-hmm.
have been very hard for me to fathom,
Mm-hmm.
in the respect that, you know, you're not one-on-one.
Right.
It's usually maybe two people or three people that are in the house, and you come in with a group of 7 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the idea of what I heard from you and your panel yesterday that you had, and that
Mm-hmm.
was an extremely informative panel, and
Mm-hmm.
you guys did a great job. Like
Oh,
you
thank
brought
you.
up the point, and that's exactly what has to be done in the
Mm-hmm.
community. And there's groups that, just like you said, need to stick to Waverly.
Right.
And
Yep.
you know, if there's private investigations, like, I don't know if you wanted to say through the state, if the no, I don't even want to bring the state into it.
I
If
don't. I don't look forward to it happening, but if people keep getting hurt, all it's going to take is for enough people in a community to complain. And then next thing
so
you know, there's laws starting to being passed.
so if we went ahead and said that there are certain teams that qualify through this
Mm-hmm.
training to be able to go into private residences, that would be 100 times better than what we have today, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep.
So maybe that's what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even with my degree, even though my degree is considered a theological degree, so it's not your typical 4-year university, but the organization that I went through, the institute, is backed by the American Association of Psychics. So they do have accreditation. Even though it's not your 4-year university, it's no different than going and getting your pastoral degree. But I have so many people who criticize me for it and, tell me that, oh, you're a fraud, you're this, you're that, no one needs to go get a PhD for ghost hunting. And I'm like, well, that's the difference. I don't ghost hunt. I research. We don't do residentials anymore right now just because we've moved. And my last case was just too heartbreaking for me to continue right now. But I still coach and help teams do their investigations. And it's right now, we need education, even if it's just, online classes to learn from each other. And that's not what people are taking the time to do. They think they can watch television shows and they know everything they need to know.
Carol Garcia brings up a very important point. She says these groups need to realize that they are dealing with problems that have to
Mm-hmm.
do with real life, and they
Yep.
should be very careful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anybody in this room right now that doesn't agree with that.
Right.
And that's of vital importance, because that's respect of life.
Yeah.
And period. That you
Mm-hmm.
can't and then you're going into their residence,
Mm-hmm.
which is private anyway,
Right.
so, but the point that you made about, how they can come up with ways of faking evidence, or
Mm-hmm.
they get one of the people that's in the house to say certain things. Or
Mm-hmm.
there was
Yeah.
one that I remember that I was involved with, where they literally we just did the interview. And in the interview, this person went ahead and we asked pretty much the things that had been happening.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, it was like the list from Ghost Adventures of the top things that happened, all
Mm-hmm.
the way down the line. And it
Yep.
was like, well, that's a red flag.
Yep.
Really, what are you going to do then?
Yep. And you also need to be careful too, because some people, it's not paranormal. It's could be psychological or medical. And if someone is, let's just say, to throw it out there, because it was happened on a case that we were doing, let's say someone is schizophrenic or borderline, some type of other, mental disorder, and you go in and you tell them they have a demon. I mean, that's only got to cause more harm than good.
When you think about the demon end of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I know this can go all over the board, because you've got light angels and you have dark angels,
Yep.
and they all have their purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about that, and you go ahead and you say, now, here you go ahead and you have an idea in your head that it might be something like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say myself, and I don't know how you feel about this, that the whole situation comes to one thing, and that's the fact that there were people that were in the community years ago, the two brothers from the East Coast. I can't think of their names now, but the one was interviewed not that long ago, and he pretty much said, in all the years that he had been on the cases, he actually had only 3 times that he actually mentioned a demon. And everything else was something else. Now, when you go ahead and, start to go ahead and mention something like that, or you're sort of crossing off the things on your list before it gets to something like that. What are the chief subject matters on both sides that would lead you to believe that it would be a demon to begin with? And your belief. I just lost her. Okay, she's going to come back on. Sorry about that, people. I'm going to try to do this real fast as long as she's going to be trying to get back on. I guess I'm not.
I'm back.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but it's like my screen kind of refreshed and then I lost audio.
You see, as soon as we start to talk about the big D, something happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, but with that, the first thing is, of course, if someone comes to me and says I have a demonic attachment, I'm going to, of course, say, how do you know that? Because 9 times out of 10, if someone says they have a demonic attachment, or if they have the attachment, they're not going to know, because the demon will do everything they can to kind of hide it. So that kind of rules that out. But things that lead me to believe that it is of course, and it's so hard because the couple cases that I've had where I thought it could have been just turned out to be an angry person or some type of medical condition. So it would have to be ongoing. It would have to be continuous. It would, some things that I always ask for is like, do you have any religious artifacts in your home? And if they say, yes, but I've put them away, kind of like, why did you put them away? Because that could have been something when they were, being, overtaken at the moment that, let's get rid of these type of thing. And it's mostly the aversion to religious artifacts, and the reluctance to get help. Because I noticed that when someone really does have a negative attachment attached to them, they're more resistant, I guess you would say, to the list of things I give them to do. Because I give all of my clients, they need to go get a medical checkup. They need to make sure, of course, I cross-reference all of their medications to make sure, because some medications do tactile hallucinations and, a whole bunch of different things. And then, of course, have you talked to your religious leader lately type of thing? And kind of just a lot of research goes into it. And it's really hard to say. Not one thing can pinpoint it. But the one thing that does lead that something is wrong is if they refuse to do it or they drag their feet doing it.
Dark Horse Paranormal, which is probably Chris and Kristen, said, great response, Heather. No one truly hunts ghosts.
Right. That's
delusional. Residential should be handled professionally and carefully. Absolutely. Thank you. And, that's the kind of thing that, I wanted to sort of get to you on and check that out, because I know you put a lot of time and effort into what you do. And, now you're on so many books. So you're like, what, how many, 6 maybe?
There's 2 that are, or 3 that are published already. 1 that comes out September 11th. And then 2 I'm contracted for, and then 5 more waiting to come out.
So it's like a giant stack of books, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Are most of them titled in the paranormal?
Actually, they all are. So far, I have Haunted Southern Nevada Ghost Towns, which was based off of our adventures that we did filming Real Haunts Ghost Towns. And then Ghosts and Legends of the Vegas Valley, which covers different mob type related ghosts. And then Haunted Florida Lighthouses comes out September 11th. And that one was a lot of fun to write. And then the newest book that came out just earlier this week is 13 Things Ghost Hunting Has Taught Me About Network Marketing.
Okay, that is exactly the one that I was going ahead and I'm going, what in heaven's name?
Yep. It was just something strange I thought of one day, and I've had it for probably about 2 years now, and it's been done, but I've just been afraid to self-publish it because that one is self-published where the other ones are through Arcadia Publishing. And I had been in network marketing as long as I'd been in the paranormal. But about 5 years ago, I decided to give it up to go into the paranormal full-time. And there's so many things that are the same. It's like client care. You need to take care of your clients in network marketing the same way you take care of, your clients in the paranormal. You need to get over your fear to do the job right. You need to network. You need to get out there. You can use the scientific method even in network marketing. Like one example, I know it's extreme, but so many people come to me and they're like, I'm so afraid to talk to new people. And I'm like, okay, well, let's come up with a theory. If you go talk to a new person and they say, no, they don't want your information, what could happen? And so I say, let's say the theory is if they say no, you'll die. So go talk to that one person and come back to me. And it's like, well, did you die? No. So your theory is wrong. Now let's come up with another theory. If you talk to somebody new, you might get a new lead or a new customer. Now, and now go do that. And it was a lot of fun writing, I just have to say. And a lot of people are already telling me that they're getting great information out of it, and they never would have thought of some of the things that I've shared in there.
Good. So could you give us a real good example of
that? Of what?
Of what you were just saying. Can you give us, as far as the marketing end is concerned? Mm-hmm. How would you go ahead and do a marketing type situation in the paranormal?
Well, one example would be getting over, actually, I'll talk about the self-possession because I talk about a lot about that in my lectures that I do. And the theory of self-possession is that if you are fully self-possessed, and I don't mean your ego is blown up, out of proportion. It means that you are fully confident in your skills. You know everything that you need to know to do your job, do what you want to do. There's really no room for anything to possess you. So like in the paranormal field, it would be, if you're confident in your, spiritual beliefs or whatever, there's really little room for a demon or a negative entity to possess you. So turning that around into the network marketing is you have all these naysayers because we know what, when you hear the word network marketing or direct sales, you're automatically thinking pyramid scheme. And that's not the case in all of them. But people, you have your naysayers. So as long as you are fully confident in knowing that what you're doing is right and you're helping people, then the naysayers aren't going to bother you.
Okay. I agree. Mm. That's awesome. And don't ask me this tomorrow. Okay. No,
there'll be a quiz.
It's very, very well spoken. That's for sure. Because, there's a lot of that stuff that, a lot of people that are in this room right now probably have never even heard of.
Right.
And if they get the opportunity to just think about something like that, as far as where they are and what they're doing with if they're in the paranormal, if that's full time, even if it was part time, they could still put the time in to go ahead and network and things like that. So.
Yep. And that's my next book is going to be 13 Things Network Marketing Taught Me About Ghost Hunting. Even though I don't like the ghost hunting term, it ranks high in keyword searches.
So for the rest of the year right now, what do you have planned as far as investigations?
No real investigations planned yet because we were actually planning on moving across the state, but that has been put on hold. I know we've been trying to get to Fort Dade to do an investigation, but every time we plan to go there, it's either rough seas because it's on an island or the weather is raining and it's basically it's a ruins of the fort. So there's nowhere to hide if it's raining, but we were supposed to get out there. So we're hoping to do that before the end of the year. We want to get to Key West really, really bad, but that hasn't happened yet either. I am appearing at Fantasm here in Orlando in September, and I have 7 different panels that I'm doing, everything from herbal magic and the paranormal to could Dracula really have existed, and horror story origins, because it's a horror convention. They wanted me to do that. And then I'm trying to think of a presentation on haunted Florida lighthouses, just a whole bunch of, I mean, the list goes on and on. I feel like I'm going to be overwhelmed over that weekend. And then, go ahead.
Excuse me.
And then I know there's going to be just some random book signings here in Florida for the newest book.
So you're moving from which side to which side?
The West Coast to the East Coast.
Yeah. You prefer the East Coast, huh?
I prefer the West Coast. And we're actually, right now, we're not even really on the West Coast. We're kind of inland, but my parents are in the East Coast, and we want to get closer to them while they're older.
In May, my brother-in-law's down in Key West. Mm-hmm. So we go down there. Normally we go down there pretty regularly, but for the last 4 or 5 years since COVID, we got all screwed up. But we went down there, and I actually got the opportunity because they said, okay, we'll take you down there this time, because it's like 15 minutes away, and it's the fort. Mm-hmm. That's the Union fort that was built by the Union troops before the Civil War.
Right. Yep.
And so I went in, I got to go in there, and of course, maybe everybody doesn't really know, but inside the fort and one of the big long gangways inside it, there is a particular doll that's in there now that I had seen earlier that used to be right downtown Key West. Mm-hmm. And he was in next to the Pan Am building, maybe. And that's Robert.
Yep.
Robert the doll. So I went in, and I was all by myself. I had pretty much the whole place. It said, okay, if you want to go, go. Mm-hmm. You know, I had given a lady one of my cards, and she says, well, you know what to do if you want to go. You know, if we hear screams, we'll come after you. I says, okay, and I just took off because I wanted to do the whole fort, take a lot of pictures, and see if I would capture anything that way. And then, of course, when you go to Robert, you have to show the utmost respect, like you do to any of the other creatures, or, the haunted ones. And, so I went ahead and asked permission to take his picture, and I talked to him and talked to him and talked to him, and I just went around and I was just taking pictures. And, I had no problem doing that. And, it didn't come across as being that sinister.
Right.
Maybe is the word, but, some people, they don't like to go see him at all. Mm-hmm. And it was like that if you do the fort, take some extra time though. Yep. Because the fort itself has got a lot of different levels to it. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really, it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can see everything from up there.
Yeah, because of where we're about 45 minutes to an hour from a marina, and they have a shuttle that goes from that marina to Key West, and it's a 2-hour boat ride because of where we're at.
Far up there.
Yeah, but if we're a lot closer going that way than if we were to go across the state and then head down, through the Miami area and go that way.
Because we used to fly into Miami, and we would rent a car.
Okay.
Every year we would run a convertible, and we would drive down to their place, and it was like it was the dream. That's the kind of thing to me that really makes it, because it's not the element that I live in, but it's the element I would love to live in. But it's really, really cool, and I know that you're going to enjoy that immensely, and you're probably going to come up with another 10 books on it, which is great, because that's what it's all about. It's sharing your experiences.
Yeah. And what's funny is one book that I completely forgot about, because I finished it a couple months ago and already sent it off to the publisher, but it's Haunted Florida Ghost Towns, and that's coming out next spring. And I never realized it, but Florida is second in the state for the number of ghost towns next to Nevada, or in the U.S. There's well over 400 ghost towns in the state.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So did you really love Nevada?
Yes and no, because we moved there from Florida, and it was nice at first, but it just got old quick. So once COVID hit and my husband started working from home, we decided to make the move back, and that's why we moved back.
That's, that part is, when you stop to think about it, how far of a drive that would be from Nevada all the way back over across like that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have movers and everybody come in? And
we did it ourselves when we moved out there and when we moved back. So, and we did long days because we stopped somewhere in Texas for the night. And then I want to say Louisiana, we stopped for the night. And so we did the trip in 3 days.
I'm looking at a different. Carol Garcia says, I feel like a lot of people or groups think it's a game to see if they can get the spirit to do what they want them to do. Even groups that have been around a while telling a spirit to use their energy to get evidence to post on sites and get more viewers. That's pretty much that in a nutshell. That's for sure.
Yep.
And then there's one other one that's right below it, and this is from Pam Harris.
Mm-hmm.
What advice can you give someone who has marketed their paranormal team on all platforms and social media? What else can you advise on how and where to market the team to get even more investigations to set them apart from other paranormal teams?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Actually, I do know if you go to my website, heatherleephd.com, and you go to the blog, I have several blogs on how to market yourself and promote your team. But some things that I do suggest is, of course, post on your social media, and don't just post, we're looking for investigations. Like my Exploring the Paranormal Facebook page, I post an engagement post, which is just a question. I ask a random question about the paranormal every day. I write a blog and make sure you're posting to that regularly. I have blogs, new blog posts go live on my website every day. If you don't have a website, use blogger.com. That's where I got my start at. And then, I don't really want to, I've kind of swayed away from going into these groups because you have one person say, I need help, and there's 1,000 members saying I can help you. So I've kind of swayed away from that. But if you want to market yourself locally, the one thing I do suggest, and we did this in Nevada, we reached out to our local library and we started doing free paranormal talks. And that's where my Ghost Town talks came from, because COVID hit and we moved it to virtual. You can do, we set up a Easter egg hunt we met, a local gym. We worked with a local gym and set up a flashlight Easter egg hunt to get our name out there, showing that we were doing more for the community than just being a paranormal team. Trunk or treats are happening right now. Put together little goodie bags and sign up to go to a trunk or treat in October and hand out goodie bags with your cards in there and be there to talk to the family members that come through. Do different things out of the box. Don't just think, you can do social media. There is so much more to do than that. I mean, even attend the conventions. You don't have to attend as a vendor, but have your business cards with you and go, to a local Paracon, or even just like Fantasm's a horror convention. Go there and just get to meet the people and see who's all there.
Are you going to have a booth at Fantasm?
Yep. Yeah. I'm going to be selling all my books and autographing them, as well as I have some spell kits that I'll be selling during the event as well.
So magic is a big to do.
Yep.
Now, how long have you been doing that?
Since about high school. So about as long as I've been in the paranormal, because I was raised Roman Catholic. And when my grandmother passed, my mom and dad kind of got away from the church. And I just it was one of those, I wasn't really lost, but I didn't know what to do. And a friend of mine introduced me to different magic rituals, and I just immediately connected with the idea of Mother Nature. And it was just, I felt at home.
There's a big crossover there between that. They're all intertwined.
Yep.
And it's really amazing because I have no issues at all bonding with all sorts of different people, you know, in the whole community, whether it's magic or it's, you know, psychic mediumship or, you know, it's mediumship too that's right on the realm right there too, as far as the exploration end of it's concerned, because it can take you wherever you want to go.
Yep. Yeah.
And you know, that's really, really important to me, because I know I've had times where I've tried to really go ahead and advance myself, and I have one of the best teachers around. That's Scotty Rourke. And you know, I'm just waiting for him to be okay now, because he had a stroke, and he's coming back and he's doing better, and it's like of vital importance, you know, because you want to stick with the people that you've been with from the start,
right?
You know, and sometimes that doesn't happen and sometimes it does. But I was looking through some of the people's names in here, and you know, there's a lot of people that we normally see, and Carol Garcia, and we've got Anthony. Anthony's from Texas, Slavos, and Carol Garcia again, Linda Kruger, Ghost Hunting Housewives. That is really an interesting group. It's got to be a lot of fun. You just got to make sure you don't run into them on an investigation and one of them has a frying pan, because then you're going to get. Danny Botts is here. Tracy Rizzo, thank you, Tracy, for shipping that shirt out. It's an awesome shirt, and I don't know if I can share it here right now, but I will soon. Johnny Mariner. Now, I caught this from the very beginning, because the name of the show now, it used to be the Shadow Hour, now it's Mariner of Spirit. And when I first thought of it, it was like, that's what I do a lot on the water and things like that. You always do when you go to Canada, you're always exploring and coming up with all sorts of different things, that some of them are weird. And it was like, well, how about Mariner? Because that's sort of a title. That's a way of looking at what I've done in the past.
Right.
I hope it's how I come across with you guys too, as guests, because I try to bring out what I think are parts that I need to learn.
Right.
In other words, I'm not just coming on here and we're talking. That I actually like to go ahead and hit you up and say, hey, and that's part of it too, because that helps me and it helps everybody in the room too at the same time.
Yep.
Now, Ghost Education 101 is the new title.
Yep.
Now, can you guys move that the night that it's on and the time it's on?
I don't know. I was going to say, I know I've talked to Philip about it before, but it just seems to work best for him.
It used to be earlier, didn't it?
It was, but then when we were with Paranormal Education 101, but when we, because that kind of all fell apart, when we kind of moved on and we created Ghost Education 101, we put it at 9:00 Eastern because of Philip's work. It made it, he wasn't rushing home. And, the extra hour he gets to actually eat.
Donna's here and she says, hi, Heather. Nice to meet you.
Hello.
Donna has started her own podcast, and we wish her the best on that. but there's all these different things that come through, that we're all intertwined on, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a extremely interesting. I know there's a group, one of the groups that I had mentioned to you way back in the beginning, and that was Greg Newkirk, Greg and Dana Newkirk,
Mm-hmm.
and the Haunted Museum, the Occult and Paranormal, and then they did during COVID. They had all these guest speakers on.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I was wondering, and you also mentioned, and what I had read earlier about the fact that how to go ahead and start up a Paracon.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Can you tell everybody your thoughts on that itself? Because that's an amazing thing.
Right. Yeah. I know when we were living in Nevada, I was actually the publisher for Macaroni Kid, which is just an online website feature, events for families. And we did a family friendly newsletter. And part of the things that we did as a publisher is our role was to set up annual events where we would do back to school events for the kids, Halloween trunk or treats. And so I've kind of learned all the ins and outs on setting up different conventions, and I need to start doing it more often. And I haven't even started. I have a long list of things that I want to do, but I think the conventions are great for networking. And, of course, you want to bring in, I don't really want to say the big names, but the big names bring people in the door so you can raise money for whatever you're raising money for. But you also want to make sure that you bring in people who are experienced in the field. And just because they don't have a TV show doesn't mean that they can't educate people who come through. We need to take advantage of these Paracons to educate, not just, we want to celebrate and educate. And there's that fine line. I've been to different conventions where all they do is, celebrate. And that's fine and dandy, but that's not, if you're going to a Paracon and you're new, you probably should be trying to learn as much as you can once, with all these big names and everybody who's there.
It's, to some people, it's overwhelming too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like friends of mine were up there in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, that's one that I've been wanting to go to for a long time now.
Yep.
And it was like, and one of the people is Johnny Zaffis.
Yep. Oh, I love John.
And I just want him
mm-hmm.
to come on the show sometime. And I've tried everything. I haven't driven out to his house and thrown a rock through his window.
It's one of those things where I can't guarantee anything, but I have talked to John in person and over the phone a couple times, and he's appeared on 2 of my shows. Wow. So I can send a message to see.
Yeah, he probably says no, he doesn't want anything to do with me. But can we go over, Brandon? We can. Good. Are you limited on your time?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So your relationship with Phil,
mm-hmm.
Philip yep. R. Wyatt, yeah. has been going on now for, and you're like minds.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, have you guys ever done any investigations together?
We have never met in person.
Are you kidding
it's
me?
Weird because we work so well together. We have never met in person. He was supposed to come down last year to St. Augustine because actually in my newest book, some of his photos are in there. And he was supposed to come to St. Augustine. We were supposed to go over and see him, but that's when one of the hurricanes hit St. Augustine and he ended up canceling his trip. But yeah, we've known each other for 4 years now and we have never met in person.
The reason I'm going on this line now from here is because of he was on, like I said, was it yesterday? Yes, I think it was mm-hmm. yesterday on Dark Horse mm-hmm. with Chris Carr and Kristen Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about his scrying. And I think I had, and I don't know if it was you or not, but they have a picture that I captured up here
mm-hmm.
of it, and it was in out of a fog machine.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It was a fog machine, and it did a whole corridor, and it had different lights. So there was like green and red lights, So, at first, everybody was under the impression the only reason it was there was strictly for seeing spirit cut through the fog.
Mm-hmm.
And I was more interested in just shooting it, different sections, because of things that I had heard him say quite a while ago now on scrying. And I didn't know that much about it. Yeah. And, how do you feel about that? Are you a student of that too?
I have never done it, but he has done a full presentation on how to do it on GhostEd, and really interesting. Would love to learn more about it, but it just really wasn't something that I had thought of doing, because I have done, like mirror scrying, or of course pendulum scrying type of thing, but I have done where you look in the mirror, stare, but that's really hard to do when it comes to actually taking photos, because you can't photograph what your mind is seeing. So, but what he does, it's so neat, because sometimes I look at it and it's like, oh, that's pareidolia just because of the waves. But then there's another photo that it's like, no, that can't be, it's like, there's no way that's pareidolia.
There's a lady that we know, and she was at the Haunted Mill last year, and her name is Mary Lynn Best.
Oh, I know her.
You know her? Have you seen her work?
Yes. Yeah.
I have 2 of hers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's absolutely amazing what you see in them. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it's not pareidolia.
Yep. Yeah.
And referring back to the fog episode, like I said, I took one, and where this school is located, back in the day, it goes thousands of years ago. She says, I was recently in St. Augustine. I would have loved to have met you. She's an amazing lady, Carol is.
Yep. I would say find me on Facebook, and next time you're down here.
But I captured this picture, and at first it looked like an alien head. Mm-hmm. And the closer I looked, at the end of the head, the point, were almost like feathers.
Okay.
And it was like an Inca or Aztec chief type thing. And I captured that, and I don't know where it is right now. My son keeps on having to take all my photos and put them up in whatever, in the cloud, in the sky or cloud or whatever it is. Yeah. But it's really wild to see something like that come about after you capture other things straight out, apparitions and things like that. To see something like that come out of the fog. And I'm really going to pay attention to what he's doing. And you mentioned mirrors.
Yep.
And how long did you do that? Or you still do that?
I haven't done it recently, but when we were in Nevada, and before I started my own team, when I was on the other team that I was on, when we would do investigations, if there was a mirror there, or even like we used to investigate, different, businesses and museums. If there was like plexiglass walls or anything like that, you could do it there too. And I just kind of sat there, went off on my own, and just stared. And, I journaled everything I saw while I was staring.
Do you meditate?
Yeah, you meditate while you're doing it. There have been times where I've seen my face change. One time I saw a shadow person standing behind me, almost as if they were watching me, trying to figure out what I was doing. And mirrors are great. Even if you don't do the staring at it or the mirror scrying, go to an investigation and sit and just look at the mirror and watch, because you never know while everyone else is busy, you just never know what that mirror might pick up that your eyes can't.
What may be going by the mirror.
Mm-hmm. There have been several times where we just put the video camera on the mirror and shoot what the mirror is seeing.
That is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we actually had one case. It was interesting. It was a residential case, and the daughter's bedroom, she had a little vanity, over here with a mirror, and then she had her dresser mirror, and they were facing each other in the bedroom. And while we were doing the EVP session, the mirror started vibrating. And we're just like, okay, what's going on? It was very interesting.
What do you think that was?
I think because the mirrors were facing each other, that was creating a portal. And I think the daughter knew it because she was dabbling in witchcraft, but didn't know what she was doing. Because once we went through and cleansed the house, the mom readjusted the mirror so they weren't facing each other. The activity kind of slowed down. Even though she still sold the house, the activity had slowed down temporarily until she sold it.
Wow, that's just unbelievable that would happen like that. I know. I mentioned that Chris Gaskowski and Alex Wilkinson, and I think they're up near the area where you guys live, and they do those benefits for cancer research.
Okay.
And they've been doing that. I did a show down in Old South Pittsburgh, and Ronnie D's a friend of mine from way back. He lives up here by me, and they were on investigating that night, and he brought him on the show, and it was like, those are the kinds of people that, not only do they go and they run these benefits, but they actually do what you were talking about, the classes. They try to do them with the people and make it so that somebody comes away with some interesting information. I think she went out. Are you going out? Are you?
Do you have me?
I think you're still there, but I think you're fading.
Oh.
But
you got me?
I got you now. Now
okay.
You're back. That was close. But that's the kind of thing that, when you brought it up and you hear about people doing it, and holy cow, I don't even want to. Carol Garcia says, I tried mirror scrying once and the right half of my face melted. I haven't tried it since. What do you think? Yeah. What do you contribute that to?
The mind does amazing things. It could have been, your mind running away with it, just because you're so focused on something, but it could also have been a spirit trying to tell you something. When you're doing a paranormal investigation, don't discount it. And that goes back to my what ifs that I actually talked about, the book that we were talking about earlier, is don't leave yourself with any what ifs. Try it again. You never, don't let it scare you that it happened. And, just, because who knows, the next time you do it, you may get some amazing evidence.
If you were in a building, say for instance, it was 2 stories and it's got like maybe 12, 15 rooms. How would you handle that with your 3 people?
First of all, we of course would walk through it during the day, just to make sure that we knew where everything was, which rooms we shouldn't go into, and where, kind of map out the place and check to make sure it's secure. And then we would, I would make sure that we were all on the same floor to a point, just so that we were all within yelling distance of each other in case something happened. But as long as we knew the location was secure, I would feel very comfortable if we all split up into a different room. Because, we don't provoke, and we know when something's not right, spiritually or with the paranormal. So we know when to get out of a location or when we need to call someone to come. But I feel that we would be fine if we all split up. But at that point, of course, we would have to use video to record what we were doing.
That's always been since I was in it, that you never go alone,
right?
But the way the whole field is going now, it seems to be drawing a lot of people to saying, I'm going to investigate by myself. Well, unless you got that camera going.
And there's a difference. Yeah, there's a difference in investigating by yourself or just separating during the investigation. Because if you're going to an abandoned building by yourself, no, that's gonna, you're testing the limits of danger, because not only do you have animals, but you have people and you know, you could get hurt. But as long as we're all in the same location and within yelling distance of each other, you know, and I truly do believe that spirits are more likely to interact when they're not being bombarded with a big group of people. Because, you know, one place that we used to do public investigations and we would bring groups through, we had tons of activity when it was just the three of us. And it was McCaw School of Mines, and they had an above ground simulated mine. And there's like 4 rooms inside the mine. And, you know, when we would be alone in the different rooms, activity crazy. You know, EVPs, we could, you know, disembodied voices that we could hear, you know, without any equipment, shadow figures, things moving, you know, strange things happening. But we bring a group of 4 people in with us, nothing. And people were saying, you know, they're like, this place isn't haunted. And then, you know, so then we started letting people go in groups of 2 and the activity picked up. It's spirits don't want to have a whole bunch of people there.
They want it all to themselves. They don't want to be pestered and bothered and picked on and poked and everything else.
You know, and I investigate differently too. I don't go in and start asking 101 EVP questions. I go in and I, you know, introduce myself, you know, tell them a little bit about myself, you know, explain that I'm not there to, you know, to harm them. I just, you know, sometimes if it's like indoors and, you know, like we come inside from the outside heat, I would be like, you know, we're just here to cool off. And I just kind of say, you know, if you have any questions, let me know. And just kind of, I just sit there for 15, 20 minutes in the silence and let the voice recorders go. And then I start asking questions, you know, and it's simple questions, you know, like, how was your day? What, you know, what is the last thing you remember doing? You know, I don't do the typical, you know, who are you? Why are you here? When did you die? It's, I stick with the, you know, alternative questions.
So do you do any ITC when you're in there?
No, I have done mostly just spirit box, but I'm not a big fan of ITC. Not in the aspect of I don't like it at all. I just don't have enough experience with it. And for me personally, it opens up so much room for audio pareidolia to occur that it's one of those things, you know, we have our spirit boxes that we do bring, but we only bring those on public investigations because I guess you say the audience wants to hear instant activity versus why am I recording on my digital voice recorder for 4 hours to go home and listen to it? They're like, what? I paid to see a ghost tonight.
We all have to cater to those people too, don't we?
Yep.
That's the crazy part.
Yep. Especially when you're hosting these events to fundraise for these locations.
There's been so many that, you know, I've just had a blast with a lot of these people. And, you know, I don't know, you know who Tim Woolworth is, right?
Oh yeah.
You know how he's really hurt right now with his head.
Yeah.
And, you know, I feel so bad for him because I'm another one of those guys that took a bunch of blows to the head. So it's but I don't consider myself to be any less than I was back then. But you know, it's just a little different, and I wish him nothing but the best.
Right. Yep.
And I always, every time I talk to him or I send him a message, I always say I'm sending prayers because that's not the Tim Woolworth that, you know, he can come back, I'm sure. Right. But he did some stuff with the spirit boxes that was simply amazing to me. And he's one of those people. He's right up there with Frank Sumption, believe it or not. But that's where I am. So if you got into the ITC end of it, what would be your tool?
I don't know. I've used a Fent box before, the boxes that Jeff Fent makes. Someone at one of our investigations, she brought one with her, and I like how that works. It's not as white noisy as, you know, spirit boxes. It's like a calm. It's almost like it stays on one channel. And we had a lot of interesting things come through that. I mean, it was almost like the spirits didn't want to shut up once she pulled that out. But the way he makes his boxes is he includes pieces from haunted locations like wood from barns and stuff like that. So who knows if it was a spirit attached to the wood that was inside of it, or if it was a spirit that was actually there. But that was a very interesting tool that she had brought with.
You know, and then you mentioned dowsing. We talked about dowsing rods, and we talked about pendulums and things like that, because aren't those all, it's part of that too?
Oh yeah. It's more, they're more physical manipulation versus audio, but similar, same path.
But like on the metaphysical.
Yep.
Okay. So I think we're going to go ahead, and I want to say that it's been great having you here. It's been amazing. You're going in and out again, and I thought,
of course,
I'd rather stop it, and we could always do another one later on. What I really like to do is I'd like to go ahead and plan it so that, you know, I'll do Phil, and then probably in the next fall, probably a year out, I'd get both of you together again, because that would be a great show too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I don't know where Brandon is. Brandon, there he is. Okay. So I want to thank you, Heather, for being on the show. It was really, really great. And is there any place you want everybody can go ahead and get all your information?
Yeah, if you go to heatherleephd.com, that takes you to our website, or you could also go to Exploring the Paranormal Show on Facebook. And that is my basically my Facebook page that we use for our team, but it's also the one that I use for my Tuesday morning podcast.
Awesome. So the Tuesday morning podcast is what time?
Oh, it's 10 a.m. to noon Eastern, and it's on WLTK DB Talk Radio.
Okay, so that's on I can't think of his name right now.
Todd Bates.
Todd.
Yep.
Todd's a great guy too.
Oh yeah.
So thank you very much. And I want to say goodbye to everybody else. And then once I go ahead and do that, then we'll go back for a minute and we'll talk. Carol Garcia does this little thing that she does with Brandon all the time on Shaman Sundays. And she says, remember to smile. And I think that's a good thing to go ahead and keep in mind continuously. And I want to thank everybody in the chat and everybody that was here tonight for being here. It was a great night. It's a great show. And Dr. Heather Lee Langdon has done an awesome job tonight. And I want to thank you once again.
Thank you.
And you guys all have a great evening. We'll see you later.